Hereby, I would like to open this meeting. Dear Commissioner Hansen, a very warm welcome here in the Dutch Parliament for this conversation with the Committee on Agriculture, Fisheries, Food Security and Nature. I would like to welcome the members of the committee, the audience present here today, and the people who are watching this via the live stream. We are very pleased to discuss and exchange points of view on the priorities and the new vision for agriculture and food on the European Commission. Topics such as the future of agriculture, derogation, sustainability and organic food are often discussed within this committee. And we are looking forward to hear from you and hear your contribution here today. I would like to ask you to give a short introduction and presentation of about 15 minutes. And after that, I will give the floor to the present members of the Committee on Agriculture, Fisheries and Food Security and Nature to exchange and continue on the topics raised. Please, Mr. Commissioner.
Thank you very much and good afternoon to everybody. Ik zal niet op Nederlands spreken, maar ik begrijp het. Mijn moeder is uit Limburg, maar het is beter het in Engels te doen. And I have, of course, not only because of my mother, a strong link to the Netherlands, but you know as well my head of cabinet, Esther de Lange, whom I know already as well for a long time. So I'm here for 2 days now in the Netherlands to discover as well a little bit the challenges, the particular challenges that the agriculture and food production is having here in the Netherlands as well, and as well to learn a little bit, because I have already visited this morning a tomato growing company led by 3 very dynamic young women, and I think it is was a very good symbol as well how you can produce intensively while as well addressing the challenges of climate protection, but as well of environmental sustainability. That is very important. But sustainability for me does not only have the environmental part. It has for me 3 pillars: so the environmental, the economic, and the social part. And this is something that needs to be very much challenged. You all remember last year around this time we had our farmers taking it to the streets because they felt too much pressure for different reasons, and we are now addressing bit by bit these pressures and concerns that our farmers have felt. And the former Commission has already done so in the beginning with a simplification package last year, followed as well by the so-called strategic dialogue that brought together not only farmers but as well transformers and as well the business side, but as well the NGOs, to speak about the common challenges for the sector and find common solutions in consensus as well. And that is this depolarizing exercise is something that will continue as well, because we have now set up the new so-called European Board on Agriculture and Food that met for the first time on the 3rd of February, and this again brings together 30 organizations of the farming sector, but as well from the retailers to the food transformers, NGOs and so on. And so we will continue the discussions there. On the strategic dialogue report, there were many recommendations. Maybe one very important one is concerning the budget, but you might have questions on that as well. The budget is not fixed yet, but of course in my mission letter I have these conclusions of the strategic dialogue, which is clearly saying that agriculture needs a specific and commensurate budget that is up for the challenge, and that as well additional obligations to the farming sector should come with additional financing. So this is of course the terms on which I will be fighting for a strong budget for agriculture and the food production. Also one of the conclusions of this strategic dialogue was that the support to the farmers should be more targeted, so that it comes first to those and more strong to those who are most at need. And for me, those most at need are, of course, as well the young farmers, because we see that there is a huge problem with the generational renewal. We have currently less than 12% of the EU farmers that are below the age of 40 years, and below the age of 40 you can benefit as well from a specific support for young farmers. And the average age of our farmers is above 57 years of age. So if we are not now changing direction and attracting again more active people in the agriculture sector, there will be a huge problem to ensure food sovereignty in the future. And this food sovereignty has often maybe been taken a little bit too much for granted. We have put a lot of pressure on the agriculture sector, and we see now that we have this problem with the uptake. The problems are multiple. I think access to finance is a huge challenge, especially for young and female farmers. We see that from the figures. We have in this sense already now deblocked 3 billion euros package together with the European Investment Bank in the form of loans specifically to young farmers. 3 billion is not much when you consider our 27 member states, but nonetheless this is a first step. We also need to work on the access to land. That is another big problem, and I think here in the Netherlands it's a huge problem because of the prices, of course, that are very high as well. And then we try to address as well the three main concerns, and this is part of the vision that I've presented on the 19th of February, the three main concerns that our farmers expressed last year. One of them is the fair price for the good agriculture products, because often they have to sell below the production costs on the one side, and we have to address this. And therefore we have already made in the second week of my mandate two proposals to one targeted amendment to the Common Markets Organization in order to encourage farmers more to get together in producer organizations, and to have mandatory written contracts as well on the product, because as a farmer you will know what you harvested last year, you will know what is your price of your hard work, you will know what the fertilizers cost, and then you can determine what do I need for a decent living as well. And if this is done in a written contract, there will be better prices as well. And also on the Unfair Trading Practices Directive, we had to make a fix. That is a very recent legislation, but nonetheless we saw that in the cross-border application of it there were some gaps that we had to address there. So on the price side we are already doing our work. Another big point is the unfair competition, or at least the perceived unfair competition, because we know in the European Union, for example, the production costs are higher for several reasons, but as well we have been systematically been taking off, for example, plant protection products off the market, sometimes on a scientific basis, sometimes more on a rather ideological or political basis, but the result is the same. Our farmers have less tools in their toolbox to address pests, for example, and they are losing harvests for that. And for me, it is very important that if a product for scientific reasons is banned in the European Union, if it's bad for human health and for pollinators, for example, if it's bad for them inside the EU, it is as well outside the EU. And there, I think we have to be coherent and not take products that are produced with these pesticides back into the European market. That will be a huge challenge as well at the World Trade Organization, but I think that is a case that we have to make. And by the way, we have already started it with the so-called neonicotinoids with clothianidin, thiamethoxam. We are not taking in products produced with them anymore. And that is, of course, one side. Then when we speak about plant protection products, we need as well to be much quicker when it comes to new authorizations, especially for the so-called biopesticides. And there we are way too slow. In Europe, you will take several years to get an authorization. You have to do it member state by member state, which is, of course, then for the company being more costly. And this this will have an impact on the price for the farmers as well. In the United States, you can do it in less than 1 year, and I think we need to think about how we can speed up these authorizations. And I've visited the tomato production this morning. They are just waiting for such alternatives to have these biopesticides up on the market, and I think there we need to be quicker as well. And then also, I think maybe on the geopolitical side, we know that there is a huge pressure from China, but as well from the US now. And therefore we proposed a so-called unity safety net, because the European Union is very strong when we are united, but when this unity is challenged by a third country like the US is doing now, then we become quickly very weak. And we have experienced this already in 2019 when there was this Airbus-Boeing dispute, and there were import taxes then added to French wines, Italian cheeses, and so on. And this is then weakening us. And therefore we need a safety net as well, composed with a financial envelope to counterbalance this and make us not so much vulnerable towards these blackmailing strategies from third countries. Another big part that is, maybe I will stop as well by that, is the part on the simplification. That is something where you go to, when I go to the farms, it's always the first thing I get, and there I think it is several the different levels really need to work there together. And there I have now announced that there will be a further simplification package on the common agriculture policy, and we intend to bring that to the table already now in April. That will look as well as the so-called conditionality. And there I believe that we can as well manage to have a felt simplification already on a farm level. But of course, I was now, for example, in Ireland as well with the Irish Farmers Organization, and most of the concerns and the challenges I get are not from my portfolio, from the agriculture. So there is a lot coming down from environmental requirements, from sanitary requirements, but as well often from national or regional laws and obligations and challenges. And I think there we really have to work on all levels together to get this simplification done. And I will propose by the end of the year, together with the colleagues in charge of environment and health, for example. Is that the sign that I speak too long?
No fire, it's just a change of debates in the plenary.
So this second simplification package will come by the end of the year, and then of course we will start the work, and this is already starting now, discussions on the future multi-annual financial framework. And on that basis as well, we need to know what we have on the money side in order to be able to design the politics, because we can design the best policies we want. If the necessary funds are not there, well, they will be quite effectless, and that is something we need to avoid. But to keep it short, we have four main points in this vision: is to make the sector more attractive again, and this comes through prices. We have to make it more competitive again, and this is something that was a little bit a bad word over the last years, and we have changed this as well, that the competitiveness will come through several parts, namely as well simplification, but as well others. We also want it to be fair, so fair prices as well for our farmers, but as well with the right conditions of work. And the fourth point is as well that we need to take good care of our rural areas. That is on the one side, of course, we have to protect the limited resources we have. We have to do water protection. We have to reduce our emissions. I think that is very clear. But also, I think it can be done rather through incentives than through pressure top-down, and therefore we need to work as well on tailor-made approaches that have really an effect on the spot where it is really a concern. So the territorial approach will be very important, and we will further go into incentives rather to top-down. And we have as well and that's my last point, to connect again more the consumer to the rural areas and to the good food that we are producing. And that is something that is has maybe been neglected as well, but that will be very important as well. But I'm being too long, so I stop here, and I'm curious about your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. And since you have your roots in the shiny land of Limburg, some of the members have asked me if it's okay for you, acceptable if they post their questions in Dutch, or do you prefer English? If it's slow?
If it's not the Dutch from the very north, from Friesland, then I'm good.
That's unfortunately Mr. Holman. Dan zou ik de leden willen vragen of het ook akkoord is dat mevrouw Teunissen een vraag stelt, aangezien zij geen lid is van de commissie. Dat is het geval. Then I'll give the floor to the members for their questions. And if it's in Dutch, please ask it slow. And slow doesn't mean long. So, Mr. Holman, your question, please.
Oké, ik zal het niet in het Drents doen, want dat verstoort toch niemand. Mr. Hansen, thank you very much for your story and telling us what you intend to do in the future. Let's start with a simple question. We are totally stuck in the manure problems. We are totally stuck legally, and due to water quality, due to production manure above the limit of we agreed with Brussels, due to the loss of irrigation. We have this year and next year about 600,000 trucks of manure. We don't know where to go with. The simple question is, do you have a good advice for us how to solve this problem, and what can Brussels do to help us?
Mr. Commissioner.
Yes, thank you for the question. The problem, well, it is, of course, the nitrates directive that is of concern for the Netherlands, which is not directly my portfolio, but nonetheless, my constituents, to say so, are the ones that are concerned by it. And I believe that on the manure side, we have as well, and the Dutch government is very much pushing into that direction, that we have as well the solution to of the so-called Renew project in order to get the nutrients afterwards better where they are needed. I think that is one thing that we really have to develop. This is very important, not only because of the environmental issue that we have, but as well from the fertilizer discussion that we will have, because we know that the fertilizer prices are high and are likely to go even further up. So I think even the manure that is maybe now a problem, we should as well try to see it as an asset in some way, and it will be competitive with upgoing fertilizer prices. So this is, of course, one part, but on the other hand as well, I think it is very important that we also fill the innovation gap that exists in some parts. And I think when the European Investment Bank has identified an investment gap of 62 billion euros overall in the European Union in the agriculture sector. And when you have a lack of investment, you have a lack of innovation, and you have not the newest technologies out there. So I think that will be very crucial to fill this gap. And then there, of course, we can help from a policy side to say, okay, we have to give predictability to the farmers, because when you ask them, why are you not investing, they are saying, well, but you politicians are going to change the rules anyhow in 3 or 4 years, and then the bank doesn't even give a loan for that investment. And that is why we are not everywhere at the technological point where we should be to better address and while maintaining production, reduce at the same time the emissions in that sense. So I think that is something where we need to work together at the European level and the national level to fill this innovation gap. And then, of course, it is also a homework that the national, the Dutch government needs to make to see, okay, this is where we need to get, and this is our pathway to follow. And I think then the Commission is, of course, ready to look into the possibilities to help and support these initiatives as well. As you probably know, there has been a public consultation going on the nitrates directive where there were many replies as well from Dutch organizations, and also this is going to be, there will be an evaluation of the nitrates directive. So I think it is very good to have now as well a national plan where it's clearly seen how it can be reduced with technology, but as well probably you have other solutions as well. And what I hear from the minister as well is that they are heavily working on it, and that is something that will help as well the Commission on that side.
Thank you very much. Ms. Bromet, MP voor GroenLinks PvdA.
Ja, dank u wel, voorzitter. Ja, wij hebben in Nederland heel veel problemen als het gaat over de agrarische sector. En die problemen, dat zijn ook milieuproblemen zoals u zelf ook al noemt. Problemen met de waterkwaliteit, problemen met het halen van de klimaatdoelen en problemen met de biodiversiteit. En daarvoor zijn grote veranderingen van de landbouw nodig. Bent u dat met mij eens? En hoe gaat Europa helpen om de boeren op het juiste spoor te krijgen? Want zij willen duidelijkheid en zij vragen ongeveer dagelijks aan ons, waar gaan we naartoe, wat moeten we doen? We willen wel verduurzamen, maar we weten niet hoe.
Please. Well, first of all, I would like to say that our farming community is well aware of the challenges when it comes to nature protection, biodiversity protection, and as well climate change, because as well our farming community is the first victim when it comes to climate change. And I've recently visited the devastating floods that happened in Valencia, and that is something that can, where I see as well the potential of our farming community to be our best line of defense with agricultural practices that, in that case, for example, retain water, but as well, I think we can as well take it further when we speak about water quality, about biodiversity. The farmers are willing to contribute, and that is something that I very clearly hear from them. But what has been done, in my opinion, a little bit wrong is that we try to do this with one size fits all. Meaning that we apply something to the entire European Union. This has a little bit be flexibilized by the CAP strategic plans. And there it is then the task of the government to choose what is best appropriate for the domestic conditions. I still think this is the right way to have this necessary flexibility for the member states, but with flexibility comes as well responsibility. That is very clear, but of course the member state knows best what is feasible and what is not feasible. I also think that the so-called eco schemes are a good way because they are encouraging the farmers with a financial incentive to do certain practices that are better taking care of water, promoting biodiversity as well. And I think that is something where we have to reflect how we can even more go in this incentive way, because if the farmer can choose what is best feasible on his farm combined with the production, I think that is the right way to go forward. But as I said, the objectives I think are very clear. We need environmental protection. We need to fight climate change and adapt to climate change, and we need as well to protect biodiversity. But what has changed with this Commission and as well with this first deliverable on this vision is the way to get there. And there we are more on the going to the incentive side, more on the technological development. And I think that is something when the farmer sees and as well can improve his quality of work, that is something as well that we have to consider. Then he's very much, he or she is very much willing to go into that way.
Thank you. Ms. van der Plas, Boer-Burgerbeweging.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Hansen, for visiting us. It's been a long time since a Euro Commissioner visited our beautiful country and was speaking to the Agricultural Commission here in Parliament, so that is very much appreciated. Commissioner, we are talking about food security, about industry, about defense, about a strong economy in Europe. And what is needed are strategic, essential stocks of our essential needs. And I was wondering, how do you see the future of our farmers in Europe, and especially in the Netherlands, in the light of taking care of our food supplies in the near future? In a world which is very unstable, and our safety could be at stake in the future. And which role can and should farmers play in the Rearm Europe plans? Because we are hearing a lot about industry and economy and defense, but food security is, of course, also very important. So I was wondering, could you tell us something about your commitment and how farmers are can have a role in the Rearm Europe plans?
Thank you. Mr. Commissioner.
Yes, that is of course a very broad question. I believe that food security and sovereignty has as well for too long time been taken for granted, and it is not to be taken for granted. And we see how food production is a geopolitical, how it is weaponized on a geopolitical level, and that should worry us, because we had as well the tendency maybe to say a little bit, well, we go down on our domestic production and then we can take in more from other parts of the world. But it is for a fact that the cleanest production of agriculture and food is taking place in the European Union. That is not something I am saying, that is general knowledge. And therefore I think saying we will give it out of our hands is highly dangerous, firstly, because we will be slipping into dependencies that we know from other sectors, semiconductors, for example, that are as well hampering our general economy. And that is something when we are not the master of the production anymore. In that sense, everybody needs to eat on a daily basis and drink on a daily basis. Well, then we will have a huge problem there. Then also, I think we have to work on the sovereignty when it comes to certain inputs for our agriculture sector. And on the inputs, I see on the one side, of course, protein crops that are used as well in the livestock sector, but as well for human consumption. We are heavily dependent on imports when it comes to protein crops, so we need to think about how we can reduce that dependency. That can be done in several ways. Also, I think on the input costs when it comes to fertilizers, because I think, and there the farming community is already contributing a lot, as well with solidarity. I think that is a very important thing to say, because we have taken in a lot of agriculture goods from Ukraine, for example, as well, and this has had an impact, but we supported by that way, and the farmers supported by that way as well, Ukraine and the war and in the fight against Russia. I think that is very important. But as well, I think we need to get more independent from those inputs as well from Russia and Belarus. That is very clear. They have, of course, the advantage of the energy price to produce fertilizers. So we need to make better use of our organic fertilizers that we have. And in some regions, like the Netherlands, there's too much of it. So we need to see how we can make and take an advantage out of that as well, and by the same way reducing those dangerous dependencies on on inputs. So that would be my reply on this question. That is really of utmost importance. Food sovereignty is something that has been played down, but it is not to be played down.
Ms. Nijhoff-Leeuw, Partij voor de Vrijheid.
Thank you. Thank you for your introduction. Also a question about food security. The EU wants to become less dependent on imports, but at the same time farmers are limited in their production capacity. How does the European Commission see the balance between strict environmental regulations and the need for food security in the EU?
Well, it joins a little bit the answer from the question I gave before. I believe that we have to be very careful when we put now more pressure, or at least when we take incentives that potentially reduce our production capacity, because this is not only having an impact on the EU internal market, but it is as well having an impact on third countries, because we have as well a certain obligation to help to feed the world. I think the same goes as well for Ukraine. They are the grain silo of a huge part of the world. So I think bringing down production in an area where this can be done in the most sustainable way that we are doing in the European Union, I think that is very important, that we maintain productivity, and that when we move ahead in reducing our impact on the environment, that the productivity part is not the one suffering there. And there are possibilities to do so. And I spoke earlier on, for example, about biopesticides. Well, we need, and this is really a way where we can deliver on productivity or maintain the productivity, and at the same time reduce our impact on the environment. And it cannot be in our interest that those procedures are dragging over 8 or 10 years to get this authorization, these alternatives to chemical pesticides. I think that is something where we need to show again. And this is again something where we have, I think, a huge potential. You have here in the Netherlands, for example, Wageningen University that is doing tremendous work, but you have as well many startups in this sector. But if they have to go to 27 member states to get an authorization that is then taking several years, well, they will be bankrupt before they get there. And that is a problem. In the United States, you do it in 12 months. We have to get this research and this innovation back on the ground, and this is creating added value for the entire economy, and that is something we need to acknowledge. And you have to see as well, because we shouldn't limit agriculture to just the liter of milk and the tomatoes that are coming out at the end, because there's a whole environment and ecosystem of companies that are working with them. And I've seen it in the greenhouses that they are specialists for the lighting, the electricity, and it is creating wealth and jobs for the entire society. And we have to see it in that broader way, because what would these people be doing if there wasn't the greenhouses that needed maintenance, etc. And I think that is something we need to acknowledge as well, that the added value is way further than just the final product that we are getting out and that we need to eat.
Mr. Vlag, staatkundig geïnformeerde partij.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner, for taking time to talk with us about the future of the agriculture sector. The SGP is very concerned about the availability of sufficient crop protection products, as you talked about. The continuity of important crops for food production, such as onions and vegetables, is at stake. It is necessary to further reduce the environmental impact. Our party agrees with that. For the time being, I would like to ask your opinion about 2 additional measures. The first one is the faster admission of innovative alternative chemical crop protection products with less environmental impact. The second one is the admission of crop protection products specific for precision applications. In this case, the use and impact can be reduced by more than 90%, and you save the food production. Are you and your colleague commissioners willing to look at these innovations?
Well, I think I can be very brief on those 2 ones. Well, the faster approval, that is something we need to get. We can't just take off the tools out of the toolbox of the farmers. That can be done in 1 day, but the rest cannot be is done in 10 years. That is not viable. That is reducing our productivity, and that has to be changed, especially for the low impact plant protection products that I have mentioned. We need to be way quicker. And then on the second question, that is mainly precision farming, where you apply goods where they are products where they are really needed, and that is a general general problem. Well, we can speak. I've now been in France as well at the Salon de l'Agriculture, and they were having the national authorization problem with for drones, for example. Drones is something where you can really apply at the very moment. It is better for the health of the farmer as well, because he's far away from the spraying in that sense. And I think that is really where you can do a lot, and you can do a lot better and more efficient. And I think that is as well the way what I said, we need to be able to use the new technologies that are getting available and are getting as well affordable, and there as well I think the national level has to do as well the homework to get this done and make precision farming a possibility as well.
Mr. Meulenkamp, VVD.
Thank you, Commissioner, for coming here. I think one of the biggest challenges there is how we're going to feed 10 billion people in 2050. And I'm very curious about your vision on the role of new genomic techniques to feeding those people in 2050. Maybe you can share your vision with us.
Well, the 10 million people need to be fed. I think that is a huge challenge, of course, because we know that the agricultural land is not being getting bigger. I think we have to work on multiple areas there as well, because as the population is, of course, growing slowly in the European Union, but elsewhere it is growing way faster. And this is as well contributing to people not wanting to live there anymore where they were born, and moving as well. So migration is as well something that can be addressed with sufficient production. So we need as well to make sure that productions that are, for example, and I asked this morning the question to, there was as well from the greenhouse growing technology representative there, and I asked them how can you deliver as well the technology so that it works, for example, in some African countries, and they can. And I think there as well we need to see better what we can do over our development aid as well, how we can deliver those technologies to third countries, help them directly and make them live out of this, and then give them perspectives as well there. I think that is one part. The other part is, of course, we need, this growing population that we need to feed. I think it is as well very important that we don't reduce our own capacity, because then food grown in elsewhere that was supposed to go to other countries is then coming to the European Union as well. This is adding pressure. And then on your precise questions on NGTs, this is not in my portfolio again, but nonetheless, I think it is a very important progress. We have now in the Council as well now a position that should allow to go now ahead. I have the feeling that the European Parliament, because I was yesterday in the Agriculture Committee in the European Parliament, that there is a majority that wants to go into that direction as well. And this is as well in line with what I said, what our farmers were complaining last year, that they don't have the same toolbox as other third countries. This is on the one side for the plant protection, but as well for new genomic techniques. That is a technological progress. And I think this allows to be more resilient as well in some parts of Europe against droughts, for example. It is as well more resilient against pests, can also be, so it can contribute as well to reduce the use of pesticides. And I think my personal opinion is that we have to go ahead. That maybe I shouldn't say that as a commissioner, but that is my personal conviction. It is now in the hands of the co-legislators, and I think it. And by the way, it is asked by so many sectors. I've now. This is not a Dutch production, but I've met with our outermost region, so the Portuguese, the Spanish, and the French ones, and the French producers from Martinique, Guadeloupe are telling me we need NGTs because they are living in the same climatic zones than their main competitors, and they could go without plant protection products if the NGTs were there. And that as well, I say, let's go into that direction.
Thank you. Ms. Koekoek, Volt.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you also so much for sharing your vision. I also read in your vision that you said agriculture should be both economically and ecologically sustainable, and I hear that now in the answers as well. And it should also integrate regenerative farming, circular agriculture and technological innovation. And on that point, I wanted to ask you, how will the Commission ensure that sustainable and also regenerative farming becomes financially more attractive also than intensive agriculture? So how do you see that future, and how concrete can you already tell us what steps the Commission will take in that direction?
Well, first of all, I'm not entirely sure that everywhere the conventional agriculture is more, let's say, profitable than the more ecological or organic one. That is, I think, not always the case. Organic is, when you see often the margins, and I have now, for example, yesterday met as well with the German Milk Producers Association, and they say, well, they have not enough organic milk that is produced. They have to get it from everywhere. So I think there is a huge market. But as well, what will be very important is that we have, and that was the fourth point that I was making, we have to connect better the consumer again to the quality products. And there, I think as well, local authorities play a very crucial role. And when it comes, for example, to public procurement for a public canteen, I think it would be good that we give there as well a certain, and that is to decide as well to the local authorities, if it is possible to give, let's say, a low impact or organic, but as well regional products a priority to be served in that canteens. That will contribute to get as well our emissions down, because when the product is regionally sourced, of course it will have less transport costs in itself afterwards, and I think that is something we need to promote. But we need as well to make, and that is not a European responsibility, but still to make our next generation that is growing up more aware of what and how they consume. And that is something very important to say as well. Maybe when I go to the supermarket and I see that there are grapes from South Africa, well, I'm a little bit reluctant to buy them. And that is something that we need in the education system, bring back to the kids as well, that they have to be careful what they buy, look what they buy, and as well that we take them back to the farms. That is something very important as well, to take school classes to a farm and see how something is produced, because they take it for granted. And I've heard before the term food waste. Yes, food waste is a huge problem, and that is a huge part of the emissions of the agriculture sector. And I think that is something where when we consume more consciously, that a good quality food is not something to take for granted. I think that will contribute as well a lot in that direction.
Ms. Teunissen, Partij voor de Dieren.
Thank you for being with us today. As you know, the Netherlands has by far the highest density of livestock in the European Union. In our country, more than 500 million animals are slaughtered each year. And this leads to many problems for our nature, water quality, human health, and of course, animal welfare. In a recent interview, and you just also mentioned it, you said that keeping less animals is no solution to these problems, but the technical innovation. You mentioned that earlier, technical innovation. But on the other hand, we have numerous reports that confirm that with the current size of our livestock industry, all the important goals to protect our environment and water quality will not be met. The same is for climate goals. So do you agree that helping farmers to transfer to an agricultural system that is more sustainable, thus with less animals included, is in fact an important part of the solution to improve the quality of our environment? Thank you.
I believe that livestock is very important for the European agriculture and food production. That's my first remark, because there again, I think it is very important not to say one size fits all. We have to make now a blunt reduction everywhere in the European Union because there are a lot of differences. When you go, for example, to the German Alps, and if you wouldn't have sheep or cows grazing there, there would be nothing. There would be bushes instead of grassland, and you would have way less biodiversity. So I think there as well, we have to be clear that livestock is there not a problem. And I give you the example of my brother's farm who passed away 1.5 years ago. He had on 90 hectares around 130 units of livestock. Now there is none left. This is quite hilly grassland, and now on 30 hectares of them, because the farm has been sold, potatoes are produced in such slopes. I know the fields from practice very well. When you go down that field, you see all the soil going down, erosion, nutrients are going out. I say this is not better than livestock in that regions, and that livestock is way more sustainable there. But of course, you have as well a general trend in the European Union. Over the last 10 years, livestock has gone down by 7.8%. And everybody who stops with livestock, who comes after, will not start again. And that is a general trend. And that is a general trend that is at some point as well threatening. And therefore, I believe to artificially accelerate the reduction of livestock is not, in my opinion, not the way forward. I think we need to encourage, and I know that the Netherlands is doing certain recommendations and has initiatives to reduce its livestock. That is the choice of the member state, of course. But for the other part, I believe that a lot can be done. And when we speak about the manure challenge, I think there is as well an opportunity, because in other parts of the European Union, you would need those fertilizers. And as I said, when you look broader in the economic perspective, we need to get more independent when it comes to the fertilizer side. And therefore, I think we have to not limit the discussion to the Netherlands, but see the broader European economic opportunities. And that is something where I think the technological progress can help, and at the same time reduce the pressure on nature and water in the Netherlands.
Ms. Vedder, Christian Democrats.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Commissioner, for being here. Apologies for running late. You would think there's nobody in this building more important than the Euro Commissioner, but my calendar challenged me otherwise. Farmers operate on a local and national and global level at the same time. Farmers are a part of their local community, and it's also where their license to operate is coming from. Farmers execute their profession accounting for national laws as well as the laws of nature. And they produce often in a market that is worldwide. So that creates a regularly tension between, for example, higher production standards and global market prices. And can you speak a little bit about your ambition, whether Europe should stay leading regarding production standards, and what we can do to, at the same time, protect our farmers against these negative impacts of a global market effects, especially relative to the fact that farmers are aging and young farmers are not coming in that much. And also we need to become more independent, not only in fertilizers, but also in protein, I think.
Yes, indeed, that was the proteins was one of the, when I replied to the question before, I said that as well the input side when it comes to protein crops, that we need to reduce this as well. But it is good that this question comes now after the question of the previous speaker, because I think it is very important as well to find a balance, because you are speaking about the high production standards that we have in the European Union that often or most of the time come with additional costs. And this is making them less competitive when it comes to third market imports as well. And that is always the balance that we need to strike, because what are the people going to eat less poultry or meat? There are general trends, and I learned all these trends for my hearing in the confirmation hearing in the European Parliament, is that the general consumption of red meat is going down, and of poultry it is going up. And I think there you always have to strike the balance, because you can't say on the one side the standards are too high, and on the other hand you say, well, the competition is too fierce. So that is something where we really need to strike the right balance. It is a difficult one, because, and that is the same if we want to be as protective of the environment as possible. But at some point, the business model of the farmer is not going to work anymore. And then he will stop. And we have lost, over the last 10 years, 3 billion farms in the European Union. And we are at the point, if we lose further, we won't have the people anymore to do that important work. Then we shift away the responsibility of food production to a third country. We are moving into a dependency that is a vulnerability, and we will not have the control anymore of the production standard. And that is something where we have to move, I say we have to move ahead. We need to be more sustainable because resources are limited, yes, but this needs to be done so that the farmer can still live and survive and live out of the work that he does. And that is the important balance we need to strike. But we need as well, and I said it before as well, we have to be bolder when it comes to the reciprocity in production standards. And as I said before, if we take away a plant protection product for good reasons on scientific basis, well, then it's not fair to our farmers to take the same product in again, and that is what we are doing. This will be a challenging exercise at WTO level, but we are willing to go there.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. And I have a question by myself as well, because since we know that your predecessor was a great proponent of small-scale farming, and the Netherlands agriculture is not representative for agriculture as a whole in the European Union. I would like to ask you the question how this Commission, and I precisely speak about Commission and not only about your DG, Agri, how will this Commission give way to the Dutch way of farming, which might not be representative for the European way of farming as a whole, but for our highly efficient way of farming, of course, with taking into account all the challenges we are facing on environmental issues. And certainly when it comes to legislation, because that's a big responsibility for the European Commission. Please.
Well, as I mentioned before, we have lost too many farms in the European Union. And I also say we need all of them. And that includes the Dutch very productive and competitive farming sector. But we have as well to take care of other regions where the productivity can't be at the same level because, for example, in the mountain regions you will not have the same soil conditions, you will not have the same yields, and still we have there as well a big responsibility when it comes to maintaining as well the livelihood in the rural areas. What we have to do is as well find additional sources of income for the farming sector, and we are looking very closely what we can do in the domain of bioeconomy to find synergies that are giving, let's say, a second economic leg where the farmer stands better with that. There we have to look where the opportunities lie. There is a lot that can be done as well on the energy production side, for example. And I now recently visited as well a farm north of Brussels, which is in Flanders, which is quite close to the farming models as well in the Netherlands. And I have to say it was tremendously innovative to see what they are all doing. It's a young couple that has taken over the farm in 2012, 120 dairy cows. and everything is running on their own biogas, on their own photovoltaic, solar energy, and everything is equipped with Dutch material from Lely, and it is amazing to see the quality of life of the farmers are getting better through that innovation. But we need as well, and they have a so-called digester where the manure is used, and afterwards the dry part is sterilized and as well used again in the stable as material where the cows can lie on. And it is, I think, a perfect example of circularity. But the problem is often that when a farmer takes over the farm from the parents or from another farmer, the farm is often at the end of its innovative time. And then the farmer barely has the means to buy that farm. And if then, again, he or she has to invest into a sustainable energy project, he and she will simply not have the means. And I think there we have to be innovative to see how we can make these new technologies available from the beginning. I can cite you one example from the member state I know best, where we are now going into a direction where we do the pre-financing from the governmental side, so that the one who is installing it does not have to disburse it, and the costs are reimbursed by the production of the energy. And that is something where we need to think how can we develop that to have this innovation there immediately on the ground, which is heavily reducing that milk farm that I visited on the CO2 emissions per liter. They are amazing. And I think that is exactly what we need to develop more and have as well, because the quality of life is so much better than on the farm that I used to live on. And that is something where we need, when we want to make the job more attractive again, that we want young people to take it up. Well, we need to make this development and innovation available and accessible to them.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. And I think it was quite a challenge to discuss such an important topic where in an hour we are unfortunately running out of time. Thanks again for being here with us. It was a pleasure, and I think I'll speak on behalf of all of my colleagues if we say that we are very eager to visit you, perhaps in the future, in Brussels as well, to forward this discussion, because I think there's still a lot to speak and to talk about.
Definitely, thank you very much for that. And I read today in the press that apparently I'm the first European Commissioner for Agriculture in 7 years that visited the Netherlands. I can promise you that it will not take another 7 years before I'm coming back to this wonderful country that is, by the way, I would say at the very peak of innovation in agriculture as well. You have the world's most famous university in research in Wageningen that is delivering as well a lot of options. And I think there are many parts of the European Union when it comes, I saw today, the tomato production, they need, for 1 kilo of tomatoes, they need 4 liters of water. When you compare that to other regions where they use 60 liters of water for the same amount produced, well, then I have to say there are many regions that can learn from the Netherlands, and that is why I'm here as well to learn. Thank you.
Thank you and all the best in your responsible office. Daarmee sluit ik ook deze bijeenkomst en dank ik ieder voor de medewerking. Vergadering is gesloten.